9 o'clock. Welcome to the DAC meeting. Just going to double check we're all good on the media. Thumbs up. Thank you. My name is Nick Mihalich. I'm the vice chairman serving as chairman today. First, we're going to have a call to order.
Samuel Grace.
Present.
Gregory Gabriel.
Present.
Brian Laura.
Present.
Nick Mihalich.
Present.
Brian Chagas.
Present.
Michael Baxt.
Present.
And Kim Doe.
Present.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we'll do the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Next item is approval of minutes from September 11th, 2024. Does anyone have any comments or clarifications on the minutes from that meeting?
Motion to approve.
I hear a motion. Do I hear a second?
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Minutes are approved. Next is report from City Urban Designer.
Good morning, everyone. Claudia
morning.
Babin, City Urban Designer. Just a couple of updates. The city did receive 7 proposals for the DMP request for proposals. The selection committee evaluated them, and the top contender is Siskovich, which is the same consultant that worked with the city in 2007 to bring it to these regulations that you have seen today. So we're very excited about that. Next step will be meeting with them and really just negotiate the scope of work and moving forward. The other update that I have for you is just a reminder: the developer outreach meeting will be in the chambers on October 24 at 8:30 a.m. And that's it.
Thank you. Next, we have any declarations of ex parte communications. Does anyone have any for the case we're going to hear today? Nope. I don't have any either, seeing none. We'll move on to the public hearing. First is the swearing in of speakers.
Yeah. Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you are about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Okay, we have no continued cases. We have one new case today, formal site plan review case number 24-01. A request by Harvey E. Oyer III of Schutz & Bowen LLP on behalf of property owners North Torino Properties LLC and Port St. Lucie Properties LLC for the development of a 25-story mixed-use development including 193 multifamily units, a parking garage, and 838 square feet of commercial use. The review includes the Downtown Action Committee DAC consideration of 3 variances. 1, a request regarding an increase of the maximum setback requirement of 40 feet along Australian Avenue for the ground floor to 25th floor. 2, a request regarding an increase of the maximum setback requirement of 50 feet along Clearwater Park Road for the 7th to 25th floor. 3, a request regarding a reduction of the facade articulation requirement of 20% minimum cumulative horizontal length of all planar breaks of the building frontage. Location. The subject location, consisting of plus or minus 1.92 acres, is located on 601 and 621 Clearwater Park Road, east of South Australian Avenue, within Commission District Number 3, Commissioner Christy Fox. Good morning, Harvey.
Good morning, Mr. Chair, members of the Downtown Action Committee. For the record, Harvey Oyer of Schutz & Bowen. On behalf of the applicant, thank you for the opportunity to appear before you this morning. Let me set the table, how we're going to make the presentation. I will briefly introduce the project and the request. The majority of the presentation will be by the architect, Bernardo Fort Brescia of Architectonica. followed by a presentation on the landscape from EDSA, and then I will come back up and discuss the 3 variances. Let me share with you some basics about the project. This is our project team, all well-qualified professionals in the market. All are present to answer your questions. The applicant, the developer, is actually one of the principals in the Bristol, which you're all familiar with. In fact, I give Bristol the credit for, being that inflection point in our downtown's history when, their developer had the vision that very wealthy people would be willing to come to West Palm Beach and not only live here, but start businesses here and bring their businesses here. And if any of you were in our community at that time, a decade or so ago, there were a lot of skeptics. This will never work. People of that ilk will never want to live in West Palm. They want to be in Palm Beach. They're never going to move their companies here. They're never going to move their private equity, hedge funds here. And the Bristol was an incredible success, one of the highest taxpayers, if not the highest taxpayer in the city of West Palm Beach. And it opened the floodgates to the West Palm Beach that we have unfolding in front of us. And no one has had more of a front row seat to that than the Downtown Action Commission. So this is who your developer is, best in class. And we're fortunate that they want to build a second project in our community. Where is that project located? It is actually the extreme western boundary of your jurisdiction. This is the western side of the downtown master plan. It's on Australian Avenue. To orient you, the Marriott Hotel is here, and as you know, they are sitting on a very large development approval approved by you. I'm not sure whether that's going forward. To our immediate east is Montecito, which is a high-rise residential that has been there for some period of time. To our north is an office building and the parking garage that parks that office building. Just to the north of that are the 2 Reflections buildings, which may be in process as well. The Edge Phase 2 has just been built. You have a lot of activity in the area, most likely a Fern Street crossing doing this. The city and county are working on that right now to create another way in and out of the downtown. Yesterday, the county commission voted unanimously to proceed with the land donation to Vanderbilt University. On these blocks, the city already donated their land a month or so ago. So suffice it to say there's a lot of activity in this area, an area that was always on the fringe or perimeter of your jurisdiction, and we're finally seeing activity there. Uniquely, this Clear Lake district has very high height and FAR by right. The CLD district has 25 stories by right and a 7.0 FAR by right. Those are the highest in both height and FAR by right in the city of West Palm Beach. So always meant to be a high-rise, intensively used area, but yet still creating a street edge downtown context so that it creates a neighborhood. So that's the zoning district that we're located in. This is looking at it from I-95 or Clear Lake back towards the core of the downtown. That Fern Street crossing will be terrific to get not only vehicles across, but also pedestrians to interconnect it with the remainder of your DMP. So the request before you is a special review of the site plan, and you have jurisdiction over that because the property size is more than 50,000 square feet. By the way, we are combining 2 properties, the old American Cancer Society building and the old Ion Media building, both of which have been vacant for some time. Now, if we did these individually and did 2 towers, interestingly, we would not have to come before you, even with a 25-story building, or in that case, 2 25-story buildings, because if the property is less than 50,000 square feet, no matter how many square feet of building you're building, you don't have jurisdiction. It would be a staff level approval. But it is much more efficient use of the land to combine those properties, which then creates almost a 2-acre parcel, which does invoke your jurisdiction because of the size of the land involved. And in any event, we are seeking 3 different variances in 2 different categories. That also would invoke your jurisdiction. So you are hearing this for 2 reasons. Number one, it's over the 50,000 square foot threshold, and number two, it includes variances. So those are the requests that are before you. And the interesting part to you is going to be shared by Bernardo Fort Brescia, one of the great architects, not only in our state, but on planet Earth, and we are delighted to have him associated with our project. He's going to walk you through his design and his philosophy behind it, and then we'll talk about landscaping, and then I'll do the non-exciting part of it, which is just the technical variances and the justifications for it. So with that, I'll invite my friend Bernardo to share with you the interesting part of the project. Bernardo.
Thank you. Thank you. Good morning. I'm Bernardo Fort Brescia. I'm an architect with Arquitectonica. I'm going to take you through the images. You can see in this overall site plan the location of the building. What you see in white is the actual volume of the tower portion and its rooftop pool and terrace. So the entire rectangle, including that portion, is part of that tower. You can see the tower is parallel to the road to the south, and you can see that the north side is curving along Australian, and that gives us the opportunity to create a public plaza. So an interesting space because of the geometry. It makes it more organic, and so the building is consistent with the geometry of the rest of the neighborhood. And we do have a parking podium that is populated by other sports and pools and gardens as well. This is an important image because it's the one that refers to the context. How do you arrive and depart? And we know sense of arrival is important, and it also is how the building interacts with the street and with the vehicles arriving. You can see on the top where it says residence entrance from Australian. There's one entrance from that side, but there's also an alternative entrance where you see residence entrance from Clearwater Park. And you see they enter into an internalized drop-off. You can circulate around that big square. It's a big plaza and porch that is slides under the building and allows you to enter into the lobby, and as you turn, you look out to the lake. Also, within that circulation, we have the ramp that takes off to the parking. So there's no need to go back to the street. No matter where you're coming from Australian or from Clearwater, you're able to easily flow around a very large plaza to the drop-off, and the cars from Valet, if that were the case, could return easily. We also have a holding area for vehicles because if Valet is holding a car, there would be no obstruction of passage. But also we know nowadays there's Ubers and drivers that arrive and then they obstruct, and we now have a place for them to be directed to wait for a customer if that were the case. And that way they're not clogging the street. We have a third entrance far from the residence entrance for access to loading that is all concealed and internally maneuvered. And we have active uses along Australian. I mentioned to you the park where the artwork will be, and our landscape architect is going to tell you a little bit more about these terraces that are opening up from a series of active uses that we have along Australian and along the plaza in the walkway. It is a series of spaces that will have a purpose. There's from a boardroom to a library to a living room to other activities that would animate the facade of the building along the street and open out to a porch, a covered porch or arcade along Australian. That gives you a summary. Notice that most of our mechanical is concealed. And in a long Clearwater Park, we have a small grab-and-go market, and we have other spaces that will also animate that facade. If you look at as we move up, the garage has a liner that conceals it from Australian Avenue. And We have units that are that base portion of the building, is that the tower actually comes down to the ground, so you are unaware of the existence of the garage behind. You can see how the garage develops behind it and the units, and there we go. And you see as the floors rise. Notice that in many of the spaces we insert bicycle parking, storage, and bicycles are an important part of today's life, and we have it included in many of the locations that are marked in the floor plan. It is, and as you rise, you arrive to the plateau that I mentioned that is over the garage, where we have other activities for wellness. It's mostly a wellness deck that relates to the uses inside, where there's a spa, there's fitness, and there's a kids area and a play area for children as well. It is, and then there's an outdoor area for yoga as well. So we do interact indoor, outdoor wellness within this floor. As we have moved the social spaces, as you will see, to the roof. And this is the typical plan of the building. We have a total of 9 units facing the lake, all of them facing the lake. And we have layouts for all of them that have been worked out carefully. And in a series of course with private elevators. And you see the balcony movement along the facade that you will then later recognize in the elevations of the building. And this is a rooftop where we have an event lawn. There's a rooftop club, lounge, and a pool. And it's intended to be an outdoor space with outdoor porch and be a sort of view terrace that will be an important part of the lifestyle in the building. And of course, we conceal all the mechanical. This is a section where I mentioned where wellness is located. On the podium, you see the liner that conceals the parking from the lake, and you see the rest of the tower with the rooftop space, and the high ceiling of the lobby. Here you can see the building, and when I mentioned the movement in the peaks of the terraces, you can see that they create the appearance of 3 thin towers that are more slender, rising to the sky, where we have the consolidated outdoor space. And they actually create an undulation, much a reflection from the wind hitting, the breezes that hit the lake, and they form the shape of the building, creating a shadow and light effect with the balconies as the sun hits those glass rails. And that undulation is, and that crevice, that vertical, is what actually creates the effect of a series of slender towers lining up along the water. You can see here the view of Clearwater Park, where the tower is treated like a front. It's not any rear. It really has the same expression as the side on the lake on Clearwater, and that expression is taken also into the design of the garage. These are the elevations that show you the actual heights with the dimensions for your showing you what are the intended heights. You can see that we have generous floor to floors. It's an elegant building. It's a top class building. So that is very much part of the message. We have 11'4" floor to floor in the typical, and even more so in the penthouses. And you can see here the different views. This is the garage view, where you see the patterning, and also the separation of the garage into 3 cubes, so to speak, 3 volumes again, just like the tower above, so that we break up the mass of the garage. And these are the side views, which are very crystalline. They're not solid walls. They're friendly facades as well. And these are some of the views of the ground level, which probably is the most important part of the facades, because that's what the public that is jogging, biking, and driving can see. And they're all activated with uses that the entire sort of amenity life on the ground floor is expressed, as is the market and the drop-off and the lobby. Everything is part of the animation of the street facades. So with this, I'm going to ask Edsa, and I think Amy's here, and to take you through the open space. We consider the landscape a very important part of the messaging of the building, of the environment, and of the quality of life on this project. Thank you.
Good morning. Thank you for having us. My name is Amy Harbert. I'm with EDSA. I'm a vice president in our Southeast Caribbean studio. This is my colleague, Sabrina Hooker. She has been in the drawings, so that's why I also invited her to the podium in case we have any specific questions. So starting with the public realm, essentially what we have designed works with the flow of the building. So that's why the walkways and the open spaces look a little bit more organic, because they're kind of mimicking what's happening on the facade. So what we've done on the streetscape is we've widened the pathways. So you've got something that could be considered shared use. We have additional street trees, live oaks on this view. So it meets all the shade canopy requirements that PPRC and the landscape reviewer have asked us to do. And then additionally, we have a dedicated right turn lane into or out from the building. So traffic flow should remain the same. As we look at the public space, we've got the opening. So as the road starts to curve, you have additional room for public space. We will be working with the city to select public art. We've got the sidewalk connection to the Gateway Park, which I think is a really welcome addition to this part of downtown. And again, new landscaping, new paving, new seating. So as we're sort of building up this zone, so we've got additional shade and additional planting, we're also providing things such as seat walls for the public. Again, the indoor-outdoor connection between the market space, so people can sort of grab and go, sit outside, and enjoy community. And then additionally, we are providing, adequate lighting along the street. Okay, so then the other side of the building, looking at, we've got, a couple of parking spaces, so folks can again access that grab and go. Much larger sidewalk. This was something that we discussed with the city, so that we could get both street trees and adequate growth for those trees, because we know, resiliency is very important in this location. We've got new landscaping, paving, again, some seating, and some beautiful lighting. So that's what we've got there. Okay, so on our amenity plans, as Bernardo alluded to, the 7th floor is going to be focused mostly on wellness, especially on the sort of south and east sides. And so dedicated to spa, to some yoga, to those kinds of things. We've got a family pool, some cabanas, adequate trees and shade coverage, play space for children, and some, kind of leisure areas, maybe sports. We're sort of working through what that can become. But essentially, multiple areas for activity and even an event lawn. On the upper level, the amenity roof, what we're looking at there is something that might be considered more relaxed, I would say, than the sports courts or the leisure zones. So this would be potentially looking at an event lawn. So we take advantage of some of those views, reacting, I should say, to the interior programming. So if there was an interior lounge, that's reflected in this plan, where there might be an exterior lounge space. Small plunge pool or spa larger pool for either leisure or swim, and a games lawn or something like that for bocce. Okay, so then I will turn it back over. Yes?
Perfect.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, now for the less exciting part of the presentation. As I stated at the outset and in your staff report, there are 3 different variances that fall into 2 different categories. The first are maximum setbacks. This is a little counterintuitive for most people because normally a developer wants to encroach on a setback and come closer to a street. In the downtown master plan, of course, you want that activity on the street edge, so we need a variance if we're creating a greater setback from the street edge, which is the case here on both the Australian Avenue side and on the Clearwater Park Road side. So that is 2 of the variances. Same thing, maximum setback variance, but different sides of the building. The other one is a planar break requirement, and I'm going to walk you through and illustrate each of them. So the first is the maximum building setback on the Australian Avenue side. The maximum setback is 40 feet from the back of curb. And as you can see, we had to deal with significant curvature in the road, which makes it difficult to design a building that follows that 40-foot setback. Additionally, as you know, we have a public open space requirement, and we put the public open space on that southwest corner so it can connect back to the city's what I call Gumby Park, but I think the official name is Gateway Park. But those of you that have been here a long time with the Gumby sculpture, that is the connection back to another publicly usable space. So what that creates, folks, is a maximum setback variance request. You can see from back of curb to our building line, the 40 feet is here. And actually, because if you recall in Bernardo's presentation, this ground floor level actually has the second floor cantilevered over the top of it, and your code measures from the face of the building. So we actually have to measure from back here, even though that cantilevered roof and everything above it, floors 2 through 25, are actually closer. So let me illustrate where the variance request is. It is in this green shaded area, and it grows as you move further south. So we almost comply here, and once we move to the southern edge of the building, it varies between 41 feet provided and 78 feet provided on a 40-foot requirement. So again, that is the ground floor, and I'm going to illustrate all the floors for you. It's all one variance. It's one variance on maximum setback from Australian Avenue, but because it changes by floor, I wanted to illustrate where the variance occurs. Ground floor, floors 2 through 6 and 8 through 25. And the next slide will be the 7th floor, which is the amenity deck, which has a slightly different floor plate. So this is where the setback occurs on floors 2 through 6 and floors 8 through 25. And finally, the 7th floor, it's in a slightly different location. And I can toggle back and forth if you'd like to look at all of them. But the moral to the story is we cannot meet the 40 feet for several reasons. The largest reason is the curvature of Australian Avenue, which is a condition we did not create. That's a condition that we inherited. It does not make sense to design whatever that geometric shape would be. I failed geometry, but it would be a very odd-looking building if it had to follow the curvature of the road. Again, that's an existing condition that we did not create, and it only applies to the portion of the building frontage to minimize the variance request. We are not requesting any more than what the public open space requires and what the curvature of the road requires. And as you know, one of the requirements for the granting of a variance is not only a unique hardship on the land, not self-created by the applicant, but also that it's the minimum variance needed to accomplish the project, and we meet all of that criteria. So that's variance 1, maximum setback off of Australian. Let's now talk about maximum setback off of Clearwater Park Road, which is variance 2. And it is here. And this is because if we build it to code, we would be right on top of our neighbor Montecito to the east of us. The Clearwater Park Road right-of-way is very narrow. It's 60 feet, and you can imagine 2 high-rises separated. Oh, you can. I can give you an example. City Plaza 1 and City Plaza 2, which is exactly why we changed our downtown master plan 15 years ago, is because we were going to have a downtown full of that. And we wanted to create separation. This benefits not only us, but our neighbors. Montecito put some breathing room in there, and it pushes the building towards Australian Avenue where there are no neighbors. So by pushing the bulk of the building to a 6-lane divided highway, Clear Lake and I-95, that is the best place to put the bulk of the building. And that's what we were proposing to do. So the maximum setback off of Clearwater Park Road is 50 feet. We provide on the 7th floor 129 feet. And again, we are intentionally trying to create a lot of separation here. And floors 8 through 25, we actually bring it back closer, 18 more feet to 111 feet. If you're wondering why I left out ground floor to 6th floor, that's because we meet it. The parking garage that you saw with the beautiful screening and the marketplace underneath it, which I'm not sure if any of us did a good job of describing what that 900 square foot space is. It's a local community market, which we think is a great asset to the entire neighborhood, makes it a walkable, usable neighborhood. So we meet it on the first 6 floors. The problem only begins on floor 7. Let me illustrate this and give some dimensional numbers to it. You can see there's a 60-foot road right-of-way in the center. The first 6 floors meet the setback requirement, but if we built the entire building in accordance with the setback, that would leave very little separation between these buildings and not have the effect that I think we're all trying to accomplish. So you can see we have created a 175-foot separation from our nearest neighbor. And again, we pushed all the bulk to where it has no harm. It's on 6-lane divided highway, Clear Lake, and I-95. I think I've already described all of the justifications behind it. And the third and final variance is a planar break requirement. And you know what the purpose and intent behind this is, that we don't have very long monolithic buildings in our downtown that look like a giant warehouse. And so what the planar break requirement is to create at least a 3-foot break in your building every certain number of feet. And there's also a code requirement on the percentage of planar break, and that is the one that we don't meet. So we are required by code to have 20% of the building frontage. In our case, 20% would equal 63 feet, and we're providing around 11%. So we are seeking a variance of about 34 feet. Let me illustrate this for you. So, well, I think that's all of the illustration, but the next slide will demonstrate why we think this is not an issue. And it's not an issue because of those 3 beautiful waves that Bernardo created in the design, which effectuates the same thing. You're probably wondering what I was wondering, why do those not count as your planar break? You have these undulating, terraces that jut out that accomplish the exact same goal as the code. But according to the code, you have to measure to the face of the building behind the terrace. In other words, the terrace does not count in the planar break, even though it's a piece of the building jutting out and creating the same planar break effect. So we certainly meet the spirit and intent of the code, and I also want to point out that it's only on the first, on floors 2 through 6. We meet the planar break requirement on the ground floor, and we meet the planar break requirement on floors 7 through 25. So it's an isolated area, only one side of the building of the 4 sides, only floors 2 through 6, only the part that faces I-95. And there, in my estimation, is a beautiful breakage of the building with these three wave elements that the architect designed. So I think we're certainly meeting the spirit and intent of the code, and the staff agrees. They've recommended approval on all three variances. So there are variance standards found in your code. We meet all of them. Staff concurs. I won't go through these one by one unless you would like me to come back and do so. There are also standards in your code for the granting of a special review. We meet these as well. Staff concurs that we meet these. Again, unless you want to prolong the agony, I won't go through all of them individually, but I'm happy to come back to them. And again, we enjoy a staff recommendation for approval with one condition that we agree to, and that has to do with the transportation demand management, and we have agreed with the city staff on that. So with that, we respectfully request your approval of our special review of the site plan and our three variances, and I thank you for your time and attention, and we are all here and available to answer questions. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Harvey. Now we'll hear from staff.
Okay.
As always, thank you to the applicant for giving much details about the project, and I'm going to make my presentation quite brief, I hope. Again, my name is Claudio Avent, City Urban Designer, and I will go over the formal site plan review number, case number 2401. The applicant already explained the location, the project itself, and the context where it's located. Also mentioned that is located within the Clear Lake District, and just to emphasize a little bit about this district, intent is really characterized by a mix of high-rise offices and residential buildings. We don't have the same street grid as the other places in the downtown, so development is encouraged to actually provide these east-west connections. This allows for a 25-story building, and also has the highest FAR in the downtown, which is 7. And here on this table, you can see what they have been proposing related to the cross-building area. The request, again, is a special review approval and 3 variances. And why it's subject to a special review is because the lot is greater than 50,000 square feet. I'll go over the special review standards very briefly, but again, the applicant has made really good presentation on how they are meeting all of them. Relationship of the building to the site and surroundings. Again, this aligns with the other areas around the project site due to the fact that they are in the same district, and any development coming through will have the same development massing. We also saw all the activity uses that are providing, all of the improvements that they are doing by just having sidewalks, landscape buffers, some of these active uses like the market that they mentioned, also the open space that is actually connecting to other open spaces. And we also have the art, they're meeting the city's art ordinance by locating the public art in the open space. Circulation, they did a really good job explaining the circulation of the site. I do want to just point out that yes, they are actually providing this east-west pathway on the south of the lot that is connected to the public space, but it's also connecting to the Gateway Park. So it's providing some connectivity for pedestrians. In terms of building design, they're providing a lot of information about how this building was designed. It's a contemporary style and it's compatible with the surrounding buildings. They have provided enough facade articulation to screen their parking. And, you know, the overall, again, it was already provided by the designers. Public realm, the landscape architect actually provided a lot of detail on it, and also Harvey provided a lot of detail on what is happening on the ground floor. They are required to provide a public open space, which they do in the corner of the southwest. And also they are required to provide a private open space, which is the level 7 that you saw. The variance request, thank you to Harvey for providing that much detail. It was easy to understand it, so I'm going to go very briefly on this. The 2 variances are related to maximum setbacks are from our section 94.116 table 412, as you can see here. One relates to the maximum setback on a South Australian Avenue, and the other one relates to the one facing Clearwater Park Road. The setbacks, again, the intent of them is really to provide adequate distance from the street, bringing that activity to the street, that physical and visual connections to the street, but also give enough space for this development to have infrastructure, circulation, and a streetscape that is aligning to the overall district. The special considerations that were considered here was presented by Harvey 2, which is related to the shape of the building, the proximity to South Australian Avenue, and the proximity to the other neighbor. And here you can see on this floor plan, you actually have the minimums and maximum setbacks, and they are in blue or cyan, and you see where the building is set back in purple. And you can see on both sides. South Australian, meaning that they don't meet that setback, but in Clearwater Park Road, they do meet that setback in the ground floor. But you can also see it here on this elevation, how, throughout the levels, if you're going up, it will change a little bit, and how on the Clearwater Park Road, the setback is actually increased, and that's why they need that variance on that maximum setback. We do support these different requests for the variances. We do know that this, approving these variances is not really going to cause any negative impact, especially to the neighborhood. And related to the variance request of the planner breaks, again, thank you to the applicant for providing that information. This relates to the code requirement in section 94.109, table 4.4, and this is facade articulation requirements, the 20% of planner breaks. Again, this is a figure from our code and shows the example how to measure the planner breaks. And on the other side, you see the ground floor that was explained on how they are meeting or they're providing those planner breaks, which again, they mentioned is almost 11% of the 20%. But we know that the intent of that planner break is there by the way that they designed the actual facade of the building with the projection of the balconies. They are actually quite substantial, and you don't really see that facade behind them. And they go from all the way to the north to south of the entire facade, so that way they can actually provide that break into the whole volume of the building. So we do support this variance request. We do know that they meet the intent. We review all of these variances based on the variances review standards from section 9438D6, and they do comply with all of them. This project has also been through different reviews, one from the PPRC committee. They also provided the required letters from traffic concurrency, school concurrency, and the Federal Aviation Administration determination letter. Public notice, a notification of this meeting was sent to all property owners within the 500-feet radius of the project, and in addition, the applicant also met with the full board of the Montecito development on Friday, July 19, and this is the information that they provided. Sorry, I need a little bit of water. I do want to point out that city staff did receive an email from Jan Schwartz, and you have a copy of that with you, and this is just showing a little bit of a concerns for this development. Regarding the special review, staff recommends approval with conditions based on the findings that the petition meets the standards as indicated by section 9454B2 of the zoning and land regulations, development regulations. The following condition is recommended for approval of the special review. In coordination with the city's mobility and transportation manager, the applicant has agreed to enter into a transportation demand management agreement with the city to compensate for the new trips generated by the development and contributing to the city's mobility system. An agreement will be finalized after construction starts. And regarding the tree variances, staff recommends approval based on the findings that the petition does meet all the 10 variance standards as outlined by section 9438D6 of the zoning and land development regulations. Thank you.
Thank you, Claudia. I have one comment card here from the public, from Valerie Shaw. Have you been sworn in? Yes, please come to the podium. Pardon me? You can come to the podium.
Good morning. My name is Valerie Shaw, and I'm an owner resident at the Montecito, the condominium building located across the street from this project. I was previously on the Montecito Board of Directors. I remain involved and was present at a meeting with the building developers. As noted, the Montecito Board has been in dialogue with the developers. The board has agreed to support the earliest possible demolition of the 2 existing buildings and prepared a letter they and you should have received outlining the support and the numerous reasons for it. The Montecito Board also has dialogue with the developers regarding certain concessions due to the loss of our water and sky views and to improve our building aesthetics and condition given the construction and neighborhood impact of this dramatic new building. No agreement has been reached beyond paying for any resulting damage from their construction, and I believe some upgrading landscaping was agreed to. So this is neither an advocacy for nor against the project at this time, but rather a hope for a near future productive meeting. That said, we fully support the second variance for additional setback of floors 7 to 25. A few questions. Where will the primary driveway on Clearwater Park Drive be in relation to Montecito's entrance and exit? I'm concerned about the amount of traffic pouring onto this small road with only one entrance exit as passage through the Marriott is blocked. I would like to hear a traffic engineer's take on this and the best location for their entrance exit given the location of ours. Similarly, where is the loading dock entrance going to be located vis-a-vis the Montecito front entrance? I don't think it would be neighborly to place it across from our front entrance so we and our guests walk out to see their loading dock and dumpsters. Also, where are the 3 on-street parking spots in relation to Montecito's front? We would appreciate a detailed description of the material and design of the garage screen covering lining that will be facing our building up to the 6th floor. Finally, the building is being described as a 25-story mixed-use development, but the only commercial space allotted is 838 square feet. That appears only big enough to do a 2-table grab-and-go coffee shop or a 7-Eleven type convenience store. Hardly a relaxing cafe. Do I understand this correctly? It seems an extremely small amount of dedicated commercial space to call this a mixed-use development, and their advertisement for the Berkeley does not mention it being mixed use. That said, there are pros and cons to having more commercial space, of course. We were just under the impression there was to be a larger cafe there. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other members of the public that wish to speak that didn't give a comment card? Nope. Okay.
Mr. Chair, I don't know if you would like us to try to address some of those questions, but we certainly have the team here to do it.
Sure.
So before I ask our designer and traffic engineer to come forward, let me address some of Valerie's comments. We did meet in person with Montecito's board and general manager, I think on 3 occasions, had a lot of other dialogue with them via letter. We received, I think last Thursday, the list of items that they are requesting of us. And obviously when you receive that 4 business days before your hearing, it's hard to react in time. We were dialoguing with them for probably a year, and I think it took them a while to get together their list of items. So we fully intend to get back to you. We just couldn't react in 4 days to the list, but we will react. I would like to characterize us working together cooperatively in moving our building further west, in trying to get an early demo because unfortunately those buildings have been abandoned for quite a while. There are homeless people there. They had a break-in in their parking garage, at least one that I'm aware of. So we have, every time they've called us, we have sent the police out to remove everyone. We wanted to fence the property. We were willing to pay for a temporary fence, knowing it would come down 2 months later. The code does not allow that. By the time we got in front of you to get approval to put up a fence, we would already be here for this project. So we jointly decided we might as well just get this approved as quickly as possible and demo as quickly as possible. So unfortunately, we couldn't get a fence early, though you did write a letter in support of it to the city, which we appreciate. So that's where we stand with Montecito. We really only have one other neighbor to the north, and that is the office building. They have reviewed and endorsed our project and the requested variances, and I'd like to give this to the city clerk to put in the record. So our only other neighbor, which is to the south, which is the hotel, we were unable to get in touch with, but we did meet with 2 of the 3 neighbors that would meet with us. The third one did not, which is the hotel. With respect to Valerie's comment on the mixed-use nature of it, We don't have to be mixed use at all. We just have to have an active use on Clearwater Park Road, so we could have made that residential. We happened to make it a market because we thought that would be useful to the neighborhood and our residents. We did consider a cafe at one time, but cafe has a different parking demand that would have actually upset the entire plan. So we are doing the market, but just to be clear, there's no mixed use requirement here. It can be 100% residential. It's just an active use requirement that we could have made some other active use. I'm going to ask one of the designers or the traffic engineer to answer the location of the loading dock question, the location of our on-street parking in relation to Montecito's access point, and our access point on Clearwater Road in relation to theirs. Frankly, I don't know the answer to that, so I'll defer to someone else on that.
Which slide would you like?
Let me look at, if there's one that shows a
The
site
ground
plan.
floor?
Yeah, maybe ground floor site plan.
I think there's one here. That'd be good.
Yeah, I don't know if it shows Montecito that well, but I can talk to it. Okay. Good morning. My name is Chris Hagan. I'm a traffic engineer with Kimley Horn Associates. My address is 477 South Rosemary Avenue, Suite 215, and I was sworn in at the beginning of the hearing. I'll try to address all the comments and questions that came up, and primarily I did want to note that the existing site, there are two separate office buildings that are being demolished. All of the access for those office buildings occurs off of Clearwater Park Road, and there are a total of, I believe, 4 driveways that are serving those properties that are all along Clearwater Park Road. This plan actually reduces the number of total driveway connections on Clearwater Park Road to just 2. One of them is, and to discuss the loading question, that's pushed all the way to the southern end of the property, and I'm highlighting that here on the screen. It's proposed to have a gate that would be controlled and managed so that when deliveries have to be scheduled and they coordinate with the building management in order to be able to have access in and out. It's very low volume because the amount of loading and deliveries would be pretty minimal, but again is pushed all the way to the southern end of the property. The other driveway that'll allow access only for residents is proposed to be at the towards the northern end of the property. Unfortunately, this graphic I don't think shows the driveways on the east side of Clearwater Park Road, but this is in the area of the driveway for the Montecito, so it's close to that. But again, there are multiple driveways for the office buildings, including 1 or 2 that are right in this area as well. So it's in a similar location that Montecito traffic has been negotiating with office traffic historically in the past as well. One other item that I did want to note, I think there were some comments or questions about overall total traffic volumes. And really, the one thing that I think will be noticeable with this site is that we have worked with Palm Beach County, and you'll see if you look at the traffic performance standards letter that was issued by Palm Beach County, I believe was in your backup. We did receive a preliminary approval from the county for a new driveway connection and access point on Australian Avenue itself. That doesn't exist today with the office buildings, and we expect more than 50% of the traffic to be using Australian Avenue just because of the volume on Australian Avenue and the connectivity down to Okeechobee Boulevard and up to the north, going to Banyan and then up to all the to Palm Beach Lakes Boulevard and beyond. That's proposed as a directional access opening. So highlighting here, it will allow right in and left in. So if you're going northbound or southbound on Australian Avenue, either direction, you can enter the site. It only allows a right out because that's the left out would be the least safe movement, and that's the point where residents could use the driveway on Clearwater Park Road to exit and to go up to the signal that's just a block north of here to turn left to go south on Australian Avenue. But again, given that driveway and the orientation, we expect that to handle most of the traffic. In terms of volumes, I did want to point out that and this is seen in the traffic report, the AM peak hour traffic for the 2 office buildings that were there using the Palm Beach County trip generation rates was a total of 55 total AM peak hour trips. A condominium building with this number of units is 54 AM peak hour trips. So it's roughly equal in terms of total number of AM peak hour trips, but more than half of them are going to be on Australian Avenue, whereas all of the office was on the Clearwater Park driveway. So there's actually less impact and less interaction with Montecito traffic, certainly in the AM peak hour. And then for the PM peak hour comparison, the office buildings were 52 total trips, and the condominium building here would be 68. So an increase of 16 trips. But again, that's split between Australian and Clearwater Park Road. So again, the impact on Clearwater Park Road interacting with the Montecito driveways is less than the office buildings were. I believe that covers everything that I heard in the questions, but feel free to ask me any other questions if you did.
Mr. Hagan, a quick question for you.
Sure.
It's to speak to the residents' concern. You said that South Australian is controlled by Palm Beach County.
Correct.
Was there any discussions or possibility of changing or adding a U-turn lane at the intersection, at the lighted intersection to the north, which would even further push all your traffic to the front entrance? Just asking the question.
Sure. Yeah, we did not discuss further U-turn, any other modification to the signalized intersection to the north. No, but I did, and I don't think I mentioned it. In addition, with this new median opening there, and it's shown on this slide, there would be a full left turn deceleration lane that's carved into the median, and in the northbound direction, a new right turn deceleration lane, so it separates that traffic out.
So you don't have the exact split for trip distribution, but it's above 50%, so obviously that's going to relieve a bunch of traffic that would have otherwise come out the back for office use.
Yeah.
So this is being pulled down by that new entrance right directly onto us, South Australian with the...
Yeah, we did have a figure, it's figure 4 in the traffic study that showed the volumes and the split. And I'll just speak in terms of daily traffic. We were showing a total of 461 daily trips on the Australian driveway and 452 on the Clearwater Park driveway. So it's close to 50-50 split, slightly more on the Australian Avenue, but close to 50-50.
Thank you.
I have a question.
Sure.
In regard to the resident entrances, are those going to be gated?
Yes.
Because I'm wondering, certainly someone coming from the left turn lane, how much space are they going to have when they pull in front of a gate to get in? And same thing, are we going to have cars backing up on Clearwater waiting to get through that gate? So if they, for example, if they have guests, the guests are going to have to wait at the gate for someone to call them in?
Yeah, so we proposed the gate is pushed as far in as possible. It's located in this area. It's a little hard to see on the graphic, but it provides a significant amount of queuing for the traffic coming in. The entrance that's on Clearwater Park Road is only residents, so they'll have a fob which allows the gate to go up very quickly. It's really the case where all visitors have to come in on Australian, and so that can take a little bit longer to process because security has to help allow them, help to process that vehicle. But that's proposed to be manned so that can be processed as quickly as possible.
I mean, certainly Australian makes sense as far as the resident entrance. How many cars can queue up to get in? Is it just one car?
No. Oh, sorry. On Clearwater. Clearwater is one vehicle to the property line, but if you measure all the way back, really to because the property line is in from the sidewalk, and there's sidewalk, and then there's a landscape strip as well too. So if you measure from the edge of the travel lane on Clearwater Park Road, you could fit 2 vehicles there.
Okay. Thank you.
May I have a follow-up question
Sure.
on that question? So if it's gated, the Uber drop-off and pickup have to also go through either gate, or?
Only Australian. they would also be directed in Australian, because that's where they would, the resident entrance on Clearwater Park Road, again, that's sort of a back entrance, so I think, first of all, people unfamiliar with the site really aren't going to know to come in there, and it'll be, and its signage will say resident only, it'll be controlled by a resident fob or access in some way. The Uber drivers would also come in and be processed just like any visitor, any typical visitor would be.
Yeah, I mean, if that's, I know it's complicated to reconfigure it, but if there's a way, you know, for the Uber do not have to go through the fob or the security situation, because that could cause a lot of backups, especially on rainy days or when people have parties, you know, maybe like, you know, 20, 25 guests going to one unit, and that's just kind of, it could be a big problem, Australian especially.
Understood, and I think, again, they'll be processed just like a typical visitor would be, and one way, you know, the building management can help, work with residents to either, you know, there are ways that residents could call ahead to security to say, you know, just like they would with a visitor, to say, we've got this, you know, person who's arriving, and then the passenger can give them the ID just like a typical visitor would. One thing I did want to point out is that, you know, that we're talking about the storage, you know, is highlighting the storage that's available on site, but in addition, with the, you know, bulk of the traffic really coming up from Okeechobee Boulevard, you know, this, we would really hope that it would, you know, by and large always be contained on site. But even if it did, if there were some sort of situation where there was just a heavy, you know, influx of vehicles at a single point in time, they'll be in this right turn deceleration lane, so they're still not causing any problem for through traffic on Australian Avenue, because we're constructing a right turn deceleration lane that's, you know, the county standard is very long, so we're meeting the county standard, and it goes along basically along the entire property frontage, so it's around, it's over 250 feet. So if those cars started to back up, they would be in that right turn deceleration lane. If any were turning left, they would, you know, not be able to turn left, so they'd be stored in that left turn lane. So they're still not backing, you know, causing any stoppage in traffic, through traffic on Australian Avenue.
Thank you, Chris. Thank you for those details. I think those specific questions were answered, and I think in the interest of time, we should go through the board and just go airing all in any comments for staff on the overall project. So, Ms. Doe, can we start with you?
Yes, good. On the first of all, the building is the project is beautifully designed, and I can totally see the rationale for the 3 variances. I do have a question on the energy conservation aspect, because it's such a huge. The western elevation is such a huge amount of walls facing the afternoon sun. Could the architect please maybe elaborate on the energy conservation measures, either in the construction material or the design to, you know, reduce the heat? Because this, even in the winter, is very hot in the afternoon, and in the summer it'll be killing. And this energy conservation measures that were put in place.
Yes, there were a couple of items. We have a slight eyebrow along that slab. Is that a curtain wall? We have a protective eyebrow that will provide some sun protection, but more importantly, we have a very high efficiency energy glass that we're using. Some of the panels may be even shadow boxes. We were trying to lighten the building so they wouldn't look like a solid wall on the side, but the intent is to project the image of something crystalline, but we're very aware because of this issue. Even though it's a short facade, it's still a portion, is still like 15% or 10% of the building. It's a significant percentage. And of course, on the other sides, even in the rear, we provided, in all directions, we tried to provide continuous balconies for the following reason. Balconies provide shade and protect the glass from radiant heat, but also they protect the glass from water penetration, which could create mold. So we're particularly conscious of those issues. And it's also part of the lifestyle of today. People want indoor-outdoor living. You know, they don't want to be all inside. We ran out of space on the sides, so that's why we did the eyebrows and we did the glass. We just didn't want the side to look like a solid wall, you know, that would be unfriendly. And but I appreciate the comment, and I know we're gonna be insisting in a energy efficient facade. And I'm glad you pointed out, because it should be in the specs of the building. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Bask?
I have a question for staff.
Yep.
I'm looking at as far as the condition, and I'm trying to understand that they have to enter into an agreement to compensate for the new trips generated by development and contributing to the city's mobility system. Is the compensation they're going to pay money, or is it they're going to change something about the plan?
It will be money. It will be a contribution with money. Yes.
Okay, and then I'm just curious, the finalized agreement has to be completed 6 months after they start the project. What happens if you don't reach an agreement?
Well, that's a condition they have to meet it. They are aware about it. I'm pretty sure they will do that. Usually these conditions, sometimes we actually extend them all the way to a certificate of occupancy. But at this time, we felt like it was just easier to just have it before then.
So there would be a requirement that certainly they won't get a CO until there's a completed
Yes.
agreement.
Mm-hmm.
It just reminds me of the park line, and they had to put in a traffic light at Quadrille and Fern. And I don't know that the city really held them to that agreement, because that traffic light took a long time, and I think they were renting there well before that light was done. So it's something, certainly someone needs to keep track of these things.
Yes, yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Jiggis?
My question is more along the lines of architecture as well. The ends of the building and the undulation and mimicking water it works very well, and you achieve it on that west and east elevations. I'm just wondering why that didn't wrap around the building. When Harvey showed the Bristol at the beginning, the power of the Bristol is that it's all four sides and it sort of flows out to the ends, and this one kind of just falls flat. And I understand there's going to be some treatment,
Yes.
but in the pictures that I'm showing, it just looks very plain compared to those other two elevations. And if it just continued around, and what I don't want is something just strapped on the side to kind of make it work, but with that flow in the decks, it would just lend itself to just continue right and wrap around the buildings, unless there's something preventing it in terms of the units or the uses, functionality of the actual livable spaces.
Well, actually, it has to do to some extent, thank you for the comment, it's partly the setback of the building. And wraparound balconies are really nice. And we ran out of space, but also the buildings next door there are some structures nearby. So on that side, it would not be as usable.
Is there any way that instead of just having a straight, you said,
The eyebrow.
the eyebrow,
Oh, what if we undulate the eyebrow?
is the eyebrows,
Oh,
even
we
if
should
the eyebrows
we
undulated,
could-
what that would do is it would take that shape,
yeah,
and the
yeah.
shadowing on that side would continue,
Yeah.
and it'd just be an extra little bit of concrete.
No. Or actually, it's an
If you're
interesting
building the
comment.
eyebrow
Or
anyway.
the eyebrow could have a cut, an interruption, and create a break
Yeah,
that actually continues the language.
not
the
an
vocabulary.
architect, just
Yeah,
saying.
yeah. No.
Just putting that out there.
That's I'm open. I agree when there's something of value. So
Thanks.
it is. That's something we should consider
Something that
to
we-
break it so that it
Right.
creates that the vocabulary carries around. I got the point.
I'm channeling Roger Jansen right now. It's
Yeah,
not
I
me.
see.
I'm possessed right now. I'm going to stop talking.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Gabriel?
You call on me or?
Go ahead.
Okay. I have just two questions. For one of them is a clarification. The first one is related to the public open space, most likely probably for staff. I'm just to understand whether or not there is does the applicant have to just provide connectivity to when you're thinking about the the Gateway Park. I'm trying to see if it's just a connectivity or there's a bigger master plan that kind of unify the whole design for the public experience as it relates to coming from the property and then going to the park. If it's gonna be on the city side, kind of create the vision, but I know the developer are just restricted to their boundary. But is it like a unified design from the city? And then the other question, go ahead.
For the actual park, there's no master plan. I think the way this project is connecting to it is by really connecting the pathways.
Okay. And the other question is just possible solutions. I know the site is tight, but when you're looking at the Australian Avenue, that entrance, that sort of 24 feet, there's a possibility to maybe add another 8 feet where you can have some type of waiting area so you don't kind of prevent that backup traffic. Because even when you add up maybe public safety, which may not happen often, or they can use Clearwater for public safety, but just a consideration to add maybe another 8 feet to that 24 feet, make it wider. Maybe there's possibility of a staging waiting area for backup traffic that can solve your Uber problem or delivery or guests when you're calling in and then not answering. So that's a public solution, I think, that can solve that backup traffic. That's my only comments.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Grace.
Yeah, nothing for me. I think it's a well-designed project. I think the presentation was comprehensive, and I'm supportive.
Thank you. Brian?
Yeah, and this is just regarding the energy conservation. The parking, is it naturally ventilated or is mechanically ventilated?
Right now it is mechanically ventilated, largely because we were looking to block the headlights from neighbors, and we textured it, as you noticed.
Mm-hmm.
There's a design to it with fins,
Mm-hmm.
and but as of now, it is mechanical, right? If I recall, yes, mechanically ventilated. If we opened up in between the fins, it could have,
Mm-hmm.
but some feeling sometimes that the functional emergency lighting within the garages may be seen as bothersome, but I assume that some of that decision will happen in the process
Mm-hmm.
of design. I see your point that the mechanical ventilation has energy consumption,
Mm-hmm.
and maybe we can work something out so that the sides are naturally ventilated, and we have airflow.
Mm-hmm. That'd be a good idea.
And not be on the street.
Mm-hmm.
But if we are given this flexibility by this board, we would love to be able to have the ability to make that decision as we do the calculations with the developer.
And another question has to do with the north and the south. You know how it's like kind of a curtain wall? He kind of, one of the
Yes.
members already discussed it, but other than the eyebrow, maybe you could do something similar to what you did in the podium, the same kind of language where it's a cladding that kind of breaks up that and gives you more maybe a little undulation or
Yeah.
a little different materiality, you know,
To
so it
add
gives you
some other break
articulation.
of scale and of material on the side. We should consider that, particularly in the areas where there's no bedrooms, for example, if it's a bathroom or if it's something else. But we will discuss it with the owner on that possibility. We could incorporate not a whole other vocabulary, but something that is related to some of the elements that exist in the building.
Yeah, it works as a language.
Yeah,
overall.
so it's all consistent.
Mhm.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, well, thank you all for your detailed presentations. I think they were all excellent. Thank you for the public comments as well, and thank you to the board for their comments. I think My only comment, I think, with regard to the design was the issue here with the north and south facades. And I think if some kind of articulation can be created that way, if it could mimic the west and east facades with some kind of framing and to make that kind of look. I was going to say before, just as a general comment, just when I think a building can't be done differently and uniquely and creative and iconically, Bernardo, you deliver something to West Palm Beach. So thank you so much for your design. And I think with the comment, if that north and south facade can mimic or create something that relates, it becomes almost like a monumental piece of iconic architecture, like a Guggenheim or some kind of thing where all four-sided architectures express that concept, which I think, I think of the Clear Lake, I think of Reflections, I think of a little wave, and it's just like really, really nice. So thank you for that. And I think with that, if there's no other comments, I think we can look to see a motion.
Motion to
Mr.
grant
Chairman,
special review.
Sorry, Mr. Chairman, may I just add one comment, on the school concurrency? I know the staff doesn't want to, insist on the school concurrency payment fees before granting the permits, etc. But I believe, that is through the interlocutory agreements between various departments in the county. The planning, either department, staff, or the board, I think the obligation rests with us to ensure that the school concurrency fees are paid. So could the applicant commit to pay the fee? Because this is a very minuscule amount in the big scheme of all the construction costs and all the other costs. The school impact fee in this case is very minuscule. But in all cases where there's a scat letter with the school concurrency fees, I would like to ensure that it is that is committed to be paid.
So I don't recall the amount that was requested.
Very small, $14,000.
I don't recall what it is, and I don't know. Do we know the exact amount?
It's $14,000.
Yep. Bob? Yep, we can commit to that. By the way, just so everyone's clear, they put that in every SCAD letter. That's in addition to the school impact fees that they already collect. So legally and constitutionally, you can only impose an impact fee if it's rationally related to the impact that you are creating. And those are already calculated in the school impact fee, which legally is the only thing they're allowed to ask. They put it in every letter, as you know, asking for more. Should anyone ever challenge that, it's unfounded by the school district because they have not tied it back to the impact that you've created, which is why the city doesn't enforce it. I won't speak for Rick, but most cities do not enforce it because it's another ask that is not supported by the direct impact of the project. And with respect to uber luxury projects like this, where you have seasonal residents, a lot of them don't have kids in schools, it would be even a lower impact. In this case, we're happy to do it, but just so you know why the city doesn't enforce it and most cities do not is because under the U.S. Supreme Court case law, you're not allowed to. It's a suggested donation.
Motion to approve granting the special review. I move that the Downtown Action Committee approve the special review for DAC case number 2401 as listed in the staff report dated October 3rd, 2024 with the following conditions. 1, in accordance with the city's mobility and transportation manager, the applicant has agreed to enter into a transportation demand management agreement with the city to compensate for the new trips generated by the development and contributing to the city's mobility system. A finalized agreement will be completed 6 months after the start date of the project construction. The motion is based upon a determination that the testimony presented at this hearing along with the application submitted constitute a preponderance of competent substantial evidence. The board hereby makes findings of fact that the special review requested satisfies all the criteria of the City of West Palm Beach Zoning and Land Development Regulations, Article 2, Section 94-54B2.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Congratulations, passes unanimously.
Mr. Chair, I recommend granting a variance. I move that the Downtown Action Committee approve the variance requests included in DAC case number 2401 as follows. 1, a variance from section 94-116, table 4-12, building requirements CDL 25 regarding the maximum setback requirement of 40 feet along South Australian Avenue for the ground floor to the 25th floor. The request is to increase the maximum setback to 81 feet and an additional 41 feet fronting South Australian Avenue for all floors. 2, a variance from section 94-116, table 4-12, building requirements CDL 25 regarding the maximum setback requirements of 50 feet along the secondary street, Clearwater Park Road, for the ground floor to the 25th floor. The request is to increase the maximum setback to 129 feet 4 inches, an additional 79.4 inches fronting Clearwater Road above level 6. 3, a variance from section 94-109, table 4-4, facade articulation requirements regarding the cumulative horizontal length of all planar breaks, which shall be greater than or equal to 20% of the building frontage from the ground floor to the podium. The variance request is to reduce the 20% to 10.8%, a 9.2% reduction from levels 2 to 6 on the building frontage facing South Australian Avenue. This variance approval is made conditional upon the restrictions, stipulations, and/or safeguards listed in the Planning Division staff report dated October 3rd, 2024, that I move are necessary to ensure compliance with the purpose and intent of the zoning code and consistent with the downtown master plan and the comprehensive plan of the City of West Palm Beach. This motion is based upon the testimony presented along with the application submitted, which constitutes competent, substantial evidence that the standards in section 94-38D6 have been met.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
All those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed, congratulations, passes unanimously. Okay, the agenda next has code revision cases, which there's none, administrative appeals none, unfinished business none, new business none, other business none. With that, I think we're adjourned. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.